In this tutorial we're going to learn how to make a supersaw type arpeggio using Native Instruments Massive. So let's start off by loading up a copy of Massive and hear the arpeggio that we've programmed in. So there's our basic arpeggio pattern, and first thing we're going to do is change some of the oscillators. So we're going to start off by selecting a polysaw 2. I'm going to change the wavetable position to just use this side of it. So that's what that oscillator sounds like. And then we're going to use square saw 2, and we're going to use the saw side. So we change the wavetable position, turn up the amplitude, and we're going to just offset the tuning of this by 11 cents. And then we're going to load up another square saw 2, change the wavetable position to saw, and we're going to tune this in opposition by 11 cents as well. Then we're going to add a bit of white noise into the sound as well. And next we're going to go over to the voicing tab, and we're going to turn on 16 unison voices, and we're going to have a max of 32 polyphony with there. We're going to make sure the polyphony is switched to on, and we're also going to have the unison detuned slightly against one another. So we're going to go to minus 14 cents and plus 15 cents. Drag that down like so, put that in the middle. We'll have an LFO control that amount, but not by too much, not so it's very dramatic. We'll just start with it off to start with. Now we'll see this detuning of the unison voices controlled by the LFO. And now we'll have a little look at the amplitude envelope, because that's very important for this type of technique, especially with something that is playing very rhythmically and very quickly. We need to make sure our ADSR envelope is sorted out correctly for the amplitude envelope. So we're going to start with the quickest attack possible. Make sure that level's fully up. No delay on it. The decay is going to come down a touch, and the level is going to go up slightly as well. The sustain section can stay where it is, and we'll also increase the release time slightly. Have a listen to that now. Probably bring in some of that voicing slightly, some of that detuning of the voicing controlled by the LFO. just turn up the LFO amplitude up fully, turn the rate down so it doesn't do any kind of crazy detunings by the two amounts. Let's hear with that back on with the rate up high. So we get a nice slow detuning between the voices, which is a bit more subtle and a bit more effective. So there we've got our basic sort of supersaw timbre, and the next thing to do is kind of treat it with effects and inserts, but I'm going to do that as always away from the plugin and actually in the mixer strip, just to demonstrate how this can be done if you don't have Native Instruments Massive, or if you don't have an equivalent sort of plugin, effects plugin within whatever soft synth you're using. So we'll turn that off. So now we're going to have a little look at the inserts, and starting with our trusty friend Mr. Overdrive. So we'll add in a little bit of overdrive distortion just to brighten out and fatten up the grid up the texture slightly. So that's working really nicely. Next we want to add in some type of chorus, and for this we're going to use the scanner vibrato, and we're going to make sure that the depth isn't all the way up and that the rates are offset for the left and right channel to increase that stereo width. So let's have a go with that. So if it's like that, it's a bit too much, so we're going to dial it back. Just add some more nice detunings to the sound. Then we're going to insert a low pass filter. It's one thing that arpeggios get treated with a lot in trance music are those types of filter sweeps and those long slow progressions and morphs from one sound to the other using low pass filters. That's quite common, but we're not going to do that on the synth. We're going to add that in the chain there once we've had a bit more distortion added to the signal, more stuff to actually filter out. And then we're going to use a space designer with a plate setting, a large 2-second reverb to add some real depth to the sound. So that adds a nice sense of spatial depth to the sound there with that reverb. And finally, we're going to just do a bit of housekeeping and roll off some of the bottom ends to just over 150 Hz to make sure there's enough room for the bass and other things in the mix when it gets added back in. But we'll turn that on and get rid of this here just so we can analyse the signal and see what's actually in there at the moment. Just do a subtle bit of tonal reshaping there. can remove some of the sort of harshness and muddiness of the signal by doing that. And then finally we're going to add some multiband sidechain compression to this ARP sound. Not really using the multiband feature, both the high and low portions are using the same envelope, but we're just using this sidechain compression instead of a regular one because you can actually redraw the curve of the envelope and also decide how much of the original signal is going to get ducked or compressed out of the way and for how long. So it's a very intelligent sidechain compressor, this one by Vengeance Sound. So we'll just have a little listen to this in isolation without the sidechain compression and with the sidechain compression in. So we can hear that pumping away there. If the effect isn't sort of massively noticeable at the moment, I guarantee it will be when we play it with the kick and the bass. So let's just start with the kick and the bass and add in the ARP and then add in the sidechain compression onto it. And just to finish off this tutorial, we'll have a quick look at the sort of arpeggio, the trance arpeggio more as a lead element of the track. So in the technique just used, it was more of a supporting feature to go with some of the lead kind of chordal riff. But in this particular example, the arpeggio takes more of a lead role and acts really as the lead melody. And it's programmed slightly differently. And what we've done is we've programmed the chords, and we've got the arpeggio working off the synth rather than off the MIDI, or programming the MIDI notes. So there's the arpeggiator working in the background, and we've actually changed the chords and changed to different suspensions, and it's sort of a hybrid between a lead melody line and some sort of changing chords with changing suspensions. So let's just have a little listen to this in isolation. And there's a couple of layers that make up the overall timbre. It's programmed in a similar fashion to the supersaws in the first half of the tutorial. And so let's just have a little listen to this with some of the drums, just to hear how it sounds as a type of lead arpeggio, sort of hybrid between that lead arpeggio rather and a kind of chordal arpeggio. Let's hear that with the piano playing those MIDI regions. So the progression there really is somewhere in between some chords with suspensions and chords and melody, and that is a very effective use of the arpeggio of the ARP type trance production technique for creating those kind of timbres and programming it in a way that is a bit more creative than the standard root chords in root positions, just following the bass line. So let's have a listen to that just in the context of the whole track here, just to see how a lead arpeggio or arpeggio as lead works in the context of a trance track.